International efforts to defeat ISIL in Syria and Iraq are forcing the terrorists to search for new strongholds. They have reportedly found one in Libya. ISIL has been taking advantage of the political turmoil in the country by overrunning the northern coastal town of Syria, located just across the Mediterranean from Europe. The number of militants in the area has risen from 200 a year ago to more than 5,000 today. The group has already established strict Sharia law and carried out several public executions. EU leaders have expressed serious concern about the proximity of Islamic State's recent activity.
We must put in place in Libya what they've been waiting for a long time, which is the establishment of a national unity government and the provision of security throughout the country's territory in order to prevent Daesh from gaining ground.
It will be fundamental for everyone to give absolute priority to the Libya issue, which risks becoming the next emergency.
The editor of Pan-African Newswire, Abayomi Azikiwe, says the power vacuum that followed Muammar Gaddafi's ousting has allowed ISIL to gain a foothold in Libya.
Muammar Gaddafi has lost legitimacy to lead, and he must leave.
Our message to Colonel Gaddafi is clear: leave, go.
Many of their fighters are relocating to Libya, where there's a huge power vacuum. What has happened in Libya is a direct result of the intervention of the Pentagon and NATO in that city. The basic infrastructure has been broken down. There is a huge presence of poverty. So therefore, the Islamic State, which is well funded by elements within the Middle East, elements within NATO, and they are able to step into these political situations.
While terrorist-controlled oil sites have been targeted by anti-ISIL forces, the extremists continue to generate income through other means. Russian officials claim that ISIL has seized control of the Middle East heroin trade and is making $1 billion annually by selling Afghan opium. Almost half of all the heroin supplied to Europe is allegedly being controlled by Islamic State terrorist Abayomi Azikiwe, who we spoke to earlier, and says ISIL is being forced to diversify its assets.
It's quite obvious that Turkey and other states within the region had been funneling resources to ISIS. Now, where the situation has changed, the lines of supply has been severely disrupted. So therefore, it is not surprising that ISIS would be involved in other illicit forms of revenue generation. After the United States intervened in Afghanistan, the production of poppies and consequently opium and other forms of opiate drugs flourished. This so-called war on terrorism is in fact fueling trafficking of illegal drugs.
Now, aside from the drugs trade, there's another alarming source of revenue financing ISIL fighters, slavery, and human trafficking. RT spoke to some Syrians who managed to flee Islamic State.
They forced women to be fully covered and never show any part of the body. However, they made their slaves strip in order to sell them. Women are not allowed to show anything. If someone was caught on the streets during prayer, she would be given 100 lashes.
They cut off heads and kidnapped girls and women and took them to Raqqa. What were the slaves guilty of? This is a sin.
They stole property and destroyed churches. Our Christian sisters were seized. Some of them were taken hostage and held for ransom.
And still to come in the program, the picture of a woman in a hijab painted on a shop's wall has divided a community in one small Swedish town. The artists ended up having to change their work after their employers called it unacceptable. Plus, security fears are cited as the German city of Hamburg votes against hosting the Olympics. We'll bring you the details and plenty more stories after a short break.